But the generation that keeps the secrets, the generation that says, you don't go tell our business, this has nothing to do with the people in the streets.
Right.
That generation to where we're shame and everybody knows what's going on, but long as we didn't say it outside the house, then we can keep our secrets. And so I just believe in being able to come to the table, being able to invite my children to the table and have those conversations of what we can do better as a family, what didn't work or what's not working, and then being able to be the solution to those problems or those issues.
And welcome to the Oasis Space, where we transform your conflict into peace. I am your host, Patrice Grimes, also known as the Peace Creator, and we are a community here called Peace Pursuit. So if this is your first time joining us, you will hear the terminology Peace Pursuits used multiple times. And here in the Oasis Space, we believe the definition of peace is an acronym for what I've coined to be able to pivot even as chaos ensues. And so as we go through these episodes, we really show real tangible examples of how conflict and chaos inevitably disrupt in our lives, whether it is internally or externally. We utilize these episodes to teach how we can courageously and confidently communicate, and how we ultimately can eliminate the conflict in our lives so that we can be empowered to have peace, and empower us by embracing those authentic identities. And so that is essentially what the podcast entails. And so, of course, as a part of the podcast, not only do I provide my personal insights, but I oftentimes will bring in guests that I believe have amazing insight into their particular topic that I believe is helpful in how we transform conflict to peace, particularly in our professions and personal relationships. So, of course, this episode is no different. I am so ecstatic to have in the Oasis Space with me today a special guest, Miss Roberta Axson, as we've talked about transforming conflict into peace, and particularly with our series, Embracing for Impact. This is another category with our children, how situations of life happen and how do we embrace them for impact so that they can create the most impact, right? The things that kind of shake us to our core, that takes us off course, that doesn't feel like it comes at the right time. How do we then embrace our children in these situations so that they can create impact in their lives and for generations to come? And so that is exactly what we discussed in this episode with Miss Roberta Axson. Obviously, in this episode, we are discussing teen moms and how that can affect our relationships and our identities personally, but how it also affects our children, right? And we talk about how to ultimately create peace in those relationships when that type of, quote, disruption occurs in our lives. And so just to give you a brief introduction of Roberta, Roberta is a mentor, transformational speaker, connection coach, and founder of TeenMoms2 Beyond. Roberta values relationships and commitment to lifestyle improvement. She brings a unique perspective gained from her experience as a former teen mom and her career in health care and education. She provides mentoring, speaking, and group coaching for former teen moms and women born to teen mothers in the private Facebook group, TeenMoms2 Beyond, so they can gain confidence in using their skills, talents, and voices to be successful in their life purpose. Now, listen, that is just a little snippet When I tell y'all there are so many good jewels dropped in this episode, you are in for a treat. So whether you are actually a mother yourself, you are already a mother of a teen parent, a teen mom, or you are, you think this is going to be helpful for someone else in that space, I already know, just go ahead and prepare to share this one now. It's so good. It's so good and such a timely conversation. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome you all into the Oasis space with Miss Roberta Axson. Okay, Peace Pursuits. We are back for another phenomenal episode with my friend, my sister, Miss Roberta Axson. Let me tell y'all, first of all, I could probably spend the whole episode explaining how much I love this woman, just how much her presence just lights up my life if you have to have an opportunity to experience Roberta, and y'all are just going to get obviously the vocals, the audio of this, but just having her full exposure, the face, the smile, everything that goes along with it is really just the icing on the cake. But let me tell y'all, you're not going to be shortchanged here with what you're going to get and the value you're going to receive from Miss Roberta. She is simply a light. And I am extremely excited for this episode as a part of our series for Embracing for Impact. And so in this, we talk about peace and we talk about how do we transform conflict to peace in our personal relationships. And we're talking about our personal relationships with our children. And particularly teen moms, right? That is a reality that we live in today, that sometimes teenagers become moms, and sometimes you become the parents of teenage moms, right? And so that is something we want to discuss today. We want to dive into it today and really get some good perspective from someone that I believe to be a great guide in this subject area. So welcome to the podcast, Roberta.
Thank you, Coach Patrice. Thank you. You didn't tell me I needed to bring my peace pom-poms, girl. You did not tell me I needed to pack my pom-poms, my peace pom-poms today.
You have internal pom-poms, okay?
I'll take it. I'll take that.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here, Roberta. Like I said, I know you are in this really unique space where you help women, and particularly those that are currently teen moms or have been a former teen mom, and you have this group, TeenMoms2 Beyond, but I don't feel like that is something that just comes out of the clear blue sky with people, right? It's something that draws people to pursue and help those groups of people. So what is it about you? What made you want to work with this particular population?
Well, Patrice, actually, that is my story. TeenMoms2 Beyond. I am actually a former teen mom as well as a woman who was born to a teen mom. So this group was birthed out of experience and out of my story. And so just being that 15-year-old girl sitting in that doctor's office, hearing him say that I was 4.5 months pregnant. So, of course, sitting there shocked and disbelief because I had done something, but it was something that I had done months prior to being, I guess, aware of the consequences of my choice. And so I had my son at 15, my first son at 15, and then my mom had me actually at 16. So basically, I was continuing a generational curse. But then I realized that I was also assigned to break that curse. I was assigned to break it. And so that's when I went on the pursuit to understand, yes, this happened to me, but this is not going to be my story of receiving pity and walking in shame for the rest of my life. So I began to make choices that was going to give me a different direction in life. Not just for myself, but for my son, because I had someone that I was responsible for it at this time.
Yeah. That's so good, Roberta. And I think to me it brings up a thought of when you say you became a mom at 15, your mother had you at 16. Do you find in your work that that is somewhat of a likely pattern where mothers that become teen mothers are the product of a teen mom or a teen parent themselves? Is that something that is relatively common in that space?
I do see that, but of course, again, it takes one.
Yeah.
When I think about when we change nations and change generations, it just takes one person. And so when I realized it was going to be me, I accepted the challenge because one of the things that my mom did continuously as I was growing up, even before I got pregnant, she continuously reminded me of the things that she could not do
Mm,
because she had me. She didn't finish school because she had me. She had to
mm,
go to work because she had me. And so I did not want to continue that with my son. I wanted to make sure that I didn't use him as an excuse. Not to
mm,
say that my mom used me as an excuse to why she didn't do as much, but that was just her mindset to where
right.
what was in front of her, the urgency of taking care of this baby, that was all she could really probably do at the time. But for me, because I had him, I wanted to do more. I wanted
Mm,
to be better because I had him, because it was not his fault that he was
right.
in this world, sooner than planned, because I definitely
Hmm.
don't ever see babies as a curse.
Yeah.
It's just the choice of the timing. When you're not prepared, you're not adequately prepared. They are truly
Hmm.
blessings. But the thing of the matter, we have to realize that we got to time it. It's all about timing for everything, whether it be the career, marrying the right person, starting a family. It's always going to be about the right timing.
Yeah, that's so good, Roberta. Because I even think about when you say, and you acknowledge that, hey, I don't think she was using me as an excuse as to why she wasn't accomplishing some of the things or that she was busy doing XYZ. But that was her perception. And we realize that perception is that person's reality in that moment, right? And so, similarly to you, you may have had the same challenges and obstacles, but you decided to take those obstacles and change the trajectory to say, well, because I have this son, I want to do and I want to be XYZ, right? But I have seen in spaces where people or parents that have been teenage parents, they use almost what it feels like to be fear tactics, right? Don't have the baby because you're going to end up like me, or don't have the baby because you lose all of this freedom, or you don't get to pursue your dreams, right? And we see that in these spaces. And it doesn't sound like your mother was using those fear tactics, but more so sharing with you just what her experience had been in that space, right? So for you though, do you see that, I guess I wonder where sometimes the fear tactics are used and it quote works, that it keeps the person or keeps the child from getting pregnant because they're like, I don't want to hear my mama mouth no more. I don't want to hear this. I'm not going to do it, whatever. But then also on the flip side, it seems like it's just one of those things where it's like, it just happens, it happens, right? What has been your thoughts or experience in how, mothers of teenage mothers, former teenage mothers who then have children. What has been your experience with them using maybe fear tactics per se? Like, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, I have to be honest, rather. I'm guilty of that because my oldest son,
Yep.
actually we're all 15 years apart. My oldest son I had at 15, and then my youngest son I had at 30.
Okay.
And so I definitely share everything with him, and he adored his younger brother when I had him. He was actually in the ninth grade when I had my last son. And so I
Uh-huh.
told him, I said, listen, and of course he's in the ninth grade. So he did, he broke the curse. He didn't have a child until after he graduated from high school and then later
Mm-hmm.
married. And so I was so proud of that. But I did use that tactic because, again, I knew that I shared the journey because he was in the journey with me. So I did use that fear tactic to some degree, but I also allowed him to make choices that would benefit him as the person he was becoming because I am not a man. I
Right.
wasn't a man. And so I wanted him to have his own experience being a product of a teen mom. He saw the struggles, he saw the sacrifices, he saw the choices that I had to make for us at the time. And I think he really valued it, but then there were some times where he would become frustrated because it's like even though he adored his brother, but it was like this is not my child. When I had to go to work and because I was working as a nurse at the time when I had my second son. And so he had to be the babysitter. He was the live-in babysitter for his younger brother. So I think the agitation and frustration sometimes of the babysitting duties of the elder child. And they're like, they don't want to be inconvenienced, but I have to admit, I definitely use that. So this is what you will have all
Right.
the time if you get someone pregnant because I am not going to take care your child. So we will have
Yeah.
those conversations.
So, but that's good though, because it seems to be like, you don't want to paint the picture with rose colored glasses, right? You don't want to make it
Absolutely
sound like,
not.
well, this was easy. I had you and I'm still accomplishing this, or, it was a walk in the park because like you say, babies are a blessing. You don't believe they're a mistake, but it is part of just being realistic to say, hey, this was my experience and I don't want this for you. I want you're going to inevitably encounter challenges, but if you can eliminate this as being one of the challenges to how you accomplish your goals, this is what I think, right? And so I love how you really balance some of the quote fear tactics with still saying, okay, but I want you to have your choices and have your decisions as a man growing up in this world to pursue the things that you need to pursue. And so I think that's a major key, I think that's the key that you had it balanced, Roberta, and that's so awesome.
Well, I mean, it took the time to really read and study. And then I had the past of looking at there was no conversation with my mom and I, just being able to sit down and literally discuss what worked for you, what didn't work for you, how could you have done things better.
Yeah.
I didn't have those conversations with my mother, so I wanted to make sure I had it with my son because I knew
Yeah.
that I had continued that cycle, but I was willing to do whatever was necessary to change that cycle. And I
Mm.
know that my son is a great father. I know he's a great husband because of having those hard conversations with him, looking at me being a single mom, looking at me being a teen mom, looking at me make choices that did not um, bring value to me sometimes because, again, I had to learn so many lessons because remember, I was still a teenager. I was still making choices and learning how to mature in my journey of just becoming a woman as well as his mom, as well as his mother.
Right. So, and you bring up a good point too, even of realizing and saying, hey, I realized I didn't have these conversations with my mom. I didn't ask her what went well, what didn't go as well, what could have improved, and acknowledging and realizing those conversations were needed. And so for yourself as a teen mom, when you were going through this, what did you realize was something that you had needed during that period of time? Like what was something that, I mean, you're at the doctor's office, you hear that you're pregnant, right? And you realize like, whoa, my life is about to change, right? So I think there's a number of probably thoughts that go through your mind at this time.
Yes,
But
yes.
what was it for you that made you feel like, okay, if I didn't have it, this is something I could have really used when I had learned of me becoming a mom at this early age?
Well, for me, it's just being able to trust my vulnerability, even with my mother,
Mm.
and to be able to have those conversations where I feel some things would have been avoided. But the generation that keeps the secrets, the generation that says, You don't go tell our business. This has nothing to do with the people in the streets.
Right.
That generation to where we're shame and everybody knows what's going on, but long as we didn't say it outside the house, then we can keep our secrets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I just believe in being able to come to the table, being able to invite my children to the table and have those conversations of what we can do better as a family, what didn't work or what's not working, and then being able to be the solution to those problems or those issues.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference is being aware, bringing the awareness so that like I say, my oldest son is a father, he's a husband, so he can be better because he's not going to do everything the way I did it for him, but he'll look at he'll remember those conversations that we had where I wanted to do better or we discussed me doing better or when I did better.
Yeah. That's another good point, right? So when we talk about, again, you have obviously broken the curse by encouraging these types of dialogues. And I don't know if you had this in school when I was when I was in school, and I think a lot of people did, right? But it's like we had this sex education class. And I don't know if they even still do it. I have a few educator friends, and I know you are an educator yourself, aside from TeenMoms2 Beyond. And I guess my question around that is, do you think that the lessons they provide on sex education in the school system is adequate? Because I think back to my health class and how they talked about sex and the reproductive system and things like that. And quite often it was more information given on just how babies are made and how our bodies function in that way of reproduction versus the actual psychological emotions that are attached to becoming pregnant, and if a child or a high school student, a middle school student, whatever, becomes pregnant, what are some of the psychological things that come along with, one, just having sex, period, two, then becoming a parent as a result of having sex, right? So what are your thoughts on that and how the education, the school system provides that type of sex education to students?
Well, first of all, we can't be afraid to ask them what they need and not be shocked at their response. That I think sometimes the fear of the unknown is why we put up the smoke screens and don't really go into the detail and dissect what's needed. Because again, I teach my students, you are problem solvers. You are critical as well as creative thinkers. You are resilient. You are empowered. You are employable. That's our, the well-rounded student that we're teaching now. So as I dissect all of that, what is my part in making sure that they are that? I can tell them that, but then what is my part as well as others? Because it's a team effort. It's not that me alone taking on the responsibility of teaching them this, because I am a CTAE instructor. So that just means a career technical educator. So I'm a nurse by chosen profession. And so I teach them what it takes, what it requires for healthcare, if you want to go in a career. And then there are others in my building that teach family and consumer science, for teaching, education, and all of that. So we do collaborate because, again, we cannot be afraid to have those conversations and ask the questions, because that's where you're going to need to start. It's the assessment of coming to the table, the invitation for the students to come to the table, and really inviting others, the politicians, the clergymen, everybody, parents.
Yeah.
Just whoever, we need to have everybody at the table and allow the students to share, because they have a voice. They have a voice about their body. They have a voice about, what they are going through, hormonal, mentally, socially, all of that. And so, I knew I brought my son in an unhealthy environment because I was unstable. Looking back, my heart goes out to him even now because of the arrested development sometimes we are guilty of, and we still pretend like, well, I did the best I could do. It's like we want to shut it down, but we have to start with the conversations and inviting the people that need to be at that table so that we can hear their hearts and be the solution to these problems that we can really avoid.
Right. That's so good, Roberta. Because like you said, it takes a village, and it would be wrong of us to think that it is just on the education system to teach these things to children. But I brought it up because we do realize that there are some children in homes that they don't have that support, where they're not having those conversations. They're not having those dialogues.
I'm one of those. I didn't have it.
Yeah, right. And so almost you think of having the education system as a plan B to reinforce those things, right? But I think some people would say, well, actually, we do have parents that say, well, I don't want that being taught in the schools. I don't want the school system having those conversations that I would rather have with my child. And so it's those, I think, nuances as well to balance between those two. But the bottom line is, what I'm hearing from you is that if it's not the school system, there should be some conversations with parents at the very least of saying, well, this is what's happening. You can try to sweep it under the rug as much as you want, but people are having sex. Teenagers are having sex, and we need to talk about their perspective. Right. We need to get their perspective.
See, the parents forget what they've done. Sometimes that part there. And again, it's going to require partnership. So it's not that we're saying you have to do it all alone, but let's partner, because I want to invest in your child just like you do. I didn't birth them, but I know that some of their success is going to count on me doing my part. Parents cannot do it all. They can't.
Right.
They can't. And some of them won't do it all. They won't do anything sometimes, but we understand that this is nothing new. This has been going on for generations now. But when we partner and really are not afraid to have those conversations that are needed, then we can move ahead. Because that just even with social media, it's on their brains.
Right. It's out there. It is everywhere you look nowadays. There are some type of sexual references, right? So it's not something that you can avoid, but like you say, it's having those conversations to prepare rather than be reactive or be aggressive or upset when it actually occurs or if it occurs. And so with that, right, do you think there is a specific time, or do you feel like there are specific signs that are displayed in teenagers, or just a specific time period in general that you think is a good time for parents to start having those types of conversations with their children?
Absolutely. And I think, honestly, even in elementary, when you talk about the different life stages, they're mature enough to handle more sometimes than what we're equipped to give them. Because they can teach us.
Right. That's so true. And I didn't even think of it like that, right? A lot of times we're basing our experiences based on our own and what we think our children can handle, right? But it's not that they are evolving a lot more and maturing a lot quicker than maybe we are. And so it's not giving them credit to think that they can handle that information. Is more so trying to shield them, per se, of what the real world encompasses, without acknowledging that they likely already know and have some type of perception or some type of knowledge of these things anyway. So might as well start having the conversation earlier.
And then just allow them to lead. I think sometimes parents don't want to just relinquish that control. We want to be in control of everything concerning our child. And I understand, guilty again, but we have to be okay with allowing them to lead, being able to initiate the things that they need. Because if you're not training them and teaching them early, how will they know how to do it later in life? One of the things for me, and it may be because of being in nursing and as an educator as well, but my youngest son, And my oldest son would probably say the same thing. But I always taught them the anatomy, the correct terminology for the body.
Mm.
We talked about what the purpose of the body, because guess what? I didn't know that, Coach Patrice. I didn't know the purpose and function of my body. I
Yeah.
did not. I like you said, in school, you learning here, learning there, but I had so much trauma going on that I didn't have a great experience as a student in school.
Yeah, and when you even talk about, right, the trauma that you had and not having a great experience for yourself, not knowing your body, things like that, I guess, part of what my mind also goes to is something you had said earlier about, sometimes you feel bad for your son. It was like this arrested development that you feel like he, because you were still growing up yourself, you were a child yourself trying to raise a baby. You're learning things as you go. And I think with parenthood, that happens at any age, right? You probably learning things as you go along, but it's particularly
Yes.
challenging as a teen that is pregnant. And so how did you come to terms with even just forgiving yourself, right? Because you talk about the trauma, you talk about the things you went through, you talk about the things that maybe you didn't know, that maybe you felt like you could have given your son that you didn't, or you could not, because you were a single mom. How did you come to terms with just forgiving yourself for, like, this is something that happened and I've done the absolute best I could do?
Well, honestly, healing and forgiveness is still in progress. But
Mm,
it was, again, going back to just making a decision to where I did not want to do more damage than good.
yeah.
So I opened the door for my son and I to have those conversations of, what was it about me being your mom that you did not like as a
Mm,
child? And he was able to really share openly what he felt, about different things growing up, and just
yeah.
even going from place to place, just
Mm-hmm.
not having that stability, because I was actually homeless in high school.
Mm,
And so not being able to provide what he deserved or what I felt he needed, that was
yeah.
really hard for me. And to have two sons, and where you feel that you've been able to give your youngest son more than your oldest, but you love them the same. I love them differently because they're different people, but I love them the same because they're both mine. And
Right.
so that's why I say healing and forgiveness is still in progress, because
Yeah.
whenever things that he needs to share, I have to be willing to hear his heart. And I think
Mm,
sometimes parents, we shut down our children because it's like, "Oh, get over it. Oh, you still on that? Why are you still even? I did the best I could. I went to school. I did this for you. I gave you this. I gave you that, but you didn't
mm-hmm.
give me you."
Right.
And see,
Oh,
I couldn't show up
oh.
for him and give him me because I couldn't give me me. I couldn't give me
Mm,
anything for myself. So, me pouring out of a drought, out of an empty place, oh, it was horrible. And that's why I
oh.
reach for him sometimes and he doesn't reach back. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, it's the root of things that we have to be okay with, the timing of a thing, as I said earlier, the timing of a thing, however long it takes, I am going to be processed and I'm going to continue to make progress, because
Mm,
I must get to the root of this. When you think about generational curses, they're
mm-hmm.
rooted. They're rooted in generations, in our forefather, the ancestors. And we only know sometimes what's before us, or maybe just the generation behind us. But we are still held responsible for what came before that. And so that's why the forgiveness and the healing has to be a daily decision of, I am forgiving myself for whatever it is for that day, for that moment. Because the root is so deep that you're not going to see everything overnight. And sometimes I think we just give up, like, okay, this is enough. I'm not dealing with that anymore. I'm done with that. But then you get in a relationship. That person reminds you of somebody in your bloodline. That person reminds you of this person. Just it's gonna always be right there for you, but it may manifest differently. So yes, forgiveness and healing is until we take our last breath.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, Roberta. Oh, it was so many good things you said in that, because when I think about it, like you say, you're having these conversations, these really honest but difficult conversations
Very difficult.
to have with your son to say, well, what did you think I did well as a mom? What did you not care for when I was, at growing up?
And Patrice, think about how many people actually ask their children that as an adult. My son is 35. He's a 35-year-old man, and I'm still having conversations with him, from being a little boy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right, because we don't generally have those conversations, right? And because it makes us, what it does is it really calls to the forefront the things that we likely may have already believed in ourselves anyway. It potentially affirms what we already thought, right? Like you were saying earlier, how you were shamed, how you felt like you weren't doing enough, and so for him to possibly say something that affirms that you weren't good enough as a mom anyway, then those are the conversations we get afraid of. It's intimidating. Because it calls into question our identity. And that's something I always say, that our peace is oftentimes linked to our identity, and sometimes identity crisis, right? And why we can't get to this cycle of being actually in a peaceful place, because our identity is constantly called into question.
But with me having that conversation with him, it allows him to have those conversations with his children. So if I don't do that, then he won't do it for his. And see, again, the generation. What are we pushing forward in the generation?
Right. So you bring up a great point about breaking the generation curse of actually having teen pregnancies, but you create a new generational blessing by opening those dialogues. That's something that he's passing along, right? Not just focusing on like, oh, this is a win for me as a mom that my son didn't have a child as a teen dad.
It's deeper than that.
Now I'm incorporating that he's also having these dialogues that he can pass along with his kids, with his wife and his relationships, etc. And that's so awesome. It's more than just not having a teen pregnancy or whatever. It's how do we help prevent this by creating the dialogue around it now? And that's so awesome.
Those are destiny dialogues.
Oh,
we have to have destiny dialogues.
Oh my God, I love that. And I love too, another thing that you mentioned, Roberta, is like, you referenced the timing and how, for you, even if you may reach to him and maybe he's not always reaching back, and it's something that you have to accept, because oftentimes when we're evolving, we want people to evolve or be accepting of us when on our timeline, right? Not giving people the space to come into terms, to review the perspective, to kind of look at it from a different lens, from just in their own space, right? And we want to kind of throw in the towel and just be like, well, that's it. I guess he's done with me. I was just a bad mom, and that's just it, right? Not realizing that this person just needs some space to identify what else maybe I could have done something differently, right? And I've realized that in my adult years, right, that I'm not saying my parents were good parents, but and that's not saying you're not, right? I had a good relationship with my parents, things like that. But there are things that transpire when I talk about just being a PK and how I kind of minimize myself just because when they came into that profession, but also acknowledging like, well, where were there places that I could have shown up myself and been a little more intentional when I, even as I've gotten older, right? In my early 20s or something, could I have initiated conversations? Because it's not just on the parents, right? And so I think, again, by you introducing that of having these destiny dialogues, right, it encourages him to say, well, I don't always got to wait for mom to bring this up either. I can bring something up. I can bring it up with my child can bring it up with me, right? And it creates this cycle of healthy conversations to be receptive to. And I love that. I absolutely love that. So I think, Roberta, just in closing, because this is such a good conversation, because I know, and just some of my research that I've done over time is that, 3 in 10 teen American girls will get pregnant. at least once before the age of 20, and United States being one of the prevalent countries of teen pregnancies. And so this is a timely conversation where this is still occurring, it's still happening. And it seems to be that it's a conversation that, again, it's not outdated, it's not going out of style, it's something that's going to continuously occur. And it's just, how do we prepare and, like I say, embrace for the impact? How do we create these, when these situations happen, how do we then create peace for our children, create peace within ourselves as parents, to say, okay, this does not define you. You still have the ability to create impact, right? And it sounds to me, what I've gathered from this conversation is definitely, number one is, initiating and introducing those conversations early, not being afraid of those responses that may come, and just kind of creating those environments and communities within your family members, within your clergy, within your education system, getting acquainted with your children's educators, because it really is a partnership. It really is, and it takes really a village. Is there anything else you would want to share that may be helpful for a teen that may listen to this, or a teen parent, former teen parent of a child that is a teen mother that may listen to this? Any other last minute tips that may help transform their conflict into peace?
Well, I think first and foremost, continue to look in the mirror, no matter what part of this, whether it be the mother of the teen mom, former teen mom, look in the mirror and be willing to invest the time, the resources that's available, so that the person that looks back at you, you are pleased with in the years to come. Because I think sometimes we settle in the moment of, my life is over, I can't get past this moment, and things are going to come, the emotions, hormones, the shame, the guilt, the frustration. It's gonna be overwhelming. But to look in the mirror and see beyond what you see, and then be willing to ask for the help, so that you can get to the person that you want to see in your future. I was always motivated by what I could do in the future, that this wasn't going to last forever. I was going to have the child was going to grow up, I was going to go to school, I was going to make a better life for us. I was always looking past my choice, because I don't like to say mistake, I like to say a choice. It was an untimely choice. So not a mistake. It really bothers me when I hear people say, I made a mistake, I got pregnant. No, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, and there are consequences to the choice that you made. So the dialogue, the vocabulary, being able to be invited to the table, as well as invite others to the table, so that they can have their mirrors. Because maybe there is no evidence of what you've done, but there have been some choices that you've made in your life that were untimely. So we're not going to come and be the righteous judge. We're going to be the partners that needs to put our hands and our hearts and our feet, so that we can help the generations that are coming after us to be better. Because that's the thing, when you show up and you let people know that you're genuinely there, not because of a program that's forcing you to give back and serve and be committed for a season, but you truly have a heart to make someone else's life better. That's why I say, look in the mirror and see the person that you want to see in the future. It may not be, because even Coach Patrice, when I looked at myself and I was on DFACS for 3 years, I had a plan when I got done with nursing, what I was going to do. And one thing that God continuously reminded me of over the years, and I'm so grateful that I'm getting to serve this community now, but I always want to give back. I always want to give back, because I had so many wonderful resources. I was willing to ask for the help, though. I was willing to ask for the help. I didn't allow shame to keep me from the resources that were available for me, even if they were just for a season.
Yes. That's so good, Roberta, because like you say, sometimes people are ashamed into being prideful. Like they don't want to ask for the help. And, one of the
I
things
couldn't grow in pride. I couldn't grow in pride.
right, right, right. And you cannot grow in pride because people need people as independent as you are. And my community is typically these ambitious kind of go-getter people, and we tend to be rely on ourselves and independent and things like that. But people need other people to evolve. We need other people to help us thrive and kind of check ourselves.
Definitely.
And one of the things I talk about is how we sometimes self-sabotage our own peace by not allowing people to support us or asking for the help when we know we need it, right? It doesn't make us less of a person. It doesn't make us any less of a mother. It doesn't make us any less of a wife. It doesn't make us any less of a coworker, whatever. We're still phenomenally us, even if we're getting the support or we're accepting the support, right? And so that's the thing. That what I hear when you speak is that the reason why you have been able to be so successful despite the statistics of, the vast majority of teen mothers not graduating from school and how they end up being dropouts, or they may have another pregnancy within 24 months of their first pregnancy. You beat those odds because when I hear you speak, you had a different mindset of, one, this is not going to be a defining moment for me. It's a choice that I'm making to now better myself because of this reason. I have another reason to be even greater than what I intended to be. And it was a mindset thing for you. And also recognizing again that I can't do this by myself. Even if I'm a single mom, I cannot do this myself. And I'm going to use the resources available to me. I don't care if it makes me look like, oh, well, I'm using this resource, or I have to be on welfare. I have to do this, whatever. You did what it took to be a better.
Because really you're paying it for.
Yeah.
I knew that I would be a contributing citizen. I knew that I was going to give back. But for this season, for these 3 years, I am going to receive assistance from the Family and Children Services because that's what it's there for. It's not there for me to be a part of the generational barrier to where I stay on it. This generation and the next generation is on it. And if people need that, then utilize it. But I'm saying for me, I wanted to make sure, again, when I looked in the mirror, I could see myself in the future. And I think that's what happens to a lot of teen mothers. They can only see their circumstances. They can only see their choices. They can only see what they don't have, not what's available. Because again, shame won't sometimes allow us to ask for the help. But my shame allowed me to ask for help because I didn't want to see myself in this predicament or the situation 10, 20 years later.
So good. So good, Roberta. Okay. So we're going to wrap up here. Even though I know we could talk even longer, and it will probably just make my Monday that much greater. But we're going to wrap up here. I like to do something with my guests called rapid value questions. And it is really just adding the cherry and whipped cream on the top because y'all already provide all of this amazing wisdom and knowledge and value as it is. And it just adds some additional value for the peace pursuits at the end. So it's 4 questions. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just literally your mind. Okay.
Okay. Ready.
First question is, what is one thing that you like to do to sustain or reset your peace?
I really like to sleep and write. I know you said one thing, but they're equal to me, kind of. But I'm going to go with sleep.
Yes, that's important because I know, like, if I don't got enough sleep, I'm not the same person. I'm just a little less jovial. Like, ooh. Okay. Question number 2, name one book or song that's helped you to define peace. And it doesn't have to have peace in the title or anything like that. It's just whatever book or song that's helped you to define peace.
This is going to be a shameless plug, but I released a love song and it's called Starting Here Today. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I think about love, peace is right there. So, and the reason why I titled that song Starting Here Today, because we get to start every day. We get to start every day. Every day is starting here today. Tomorrow will be starting here today. Next week will be starting here today. So that's my shameless plug, but that's like my favorite love song.
Yes, yes. And let me say, I love that song too. You have such a beautiful voice. I remember when you dropped it on us, Roberta, just like, oh, just a little something I'm dabbling in. And I'm like, girl, you out here blowing us away.
It was ministry to my soul, Coach Patrice.
I was not ready. Listen, yeah. So we will definitely be dropping that link because it's such a beautiful song.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, third question. How do you define peace for yourself now?
Ooh, how do I define peace? Being still. Because sometimes we're all over the place. And I like to think about Mary and Martha. You know, Mary chose the right thing. She chose the good thing. And Martha was busy. She was busy all over the place trying to get the checklist done, the tasks to do. So for me, it's really being still, just being able to just sit.
Yeah.
Just doing absolutely nothing, just sitting and listening in the quiet.
Yes, I love that. You're so right about that. So right. We get so busy in the busyness that we happen to wear with like a badge of honor instead of just being still.
And it's even if it's only for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just be still. Just be still.
Okay, last question. This is a fill in the blank. It's 3 blanks, but the first one is very simple because it's just your name. So it is, my name is blank, and without peace, I'd probably be blank, but with peace, I am blank.
My name is Roberta Axson, and without peace, I would be lost. I would be lost. But with peace, I am free.
Yes. Yes.
I am free. Free in peace.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so, so much, Roberta.
And you know, you're my sunshine piece. You're my sunshine piece, Patrice.
I love that name. Thank you so much, Roberta. I will definitely drop the link to your private Facebook group for Teen Moms to Beyond. It's like you say, it takes a community, it takes a village. And I think your community definitely adds value for others that are in this similar space to just lean on each other, ask for advice, I'm sure, get other resources, right? And like you say, be okay with asking for help. And I think your community is a great place to even start in that regard for people that may have been, a little bit prideful before. Or they're just like, I don't know what to do. What's the next steps? This Facebook group is a phenomenal space to get started. So we'll definitely drop all of that in the show notes. But again, thank you so much, Roberta.
Thank you for having me.
In the Oasis space. All right. Love you so much.
Love you more.
All righty. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Man, oh man, I'm still smiling from that episode. I'm telling you all, when you speak to Roberta, it is so infectious. You can't help but smile. She just radiates this energy. And I'm sure you all felt it through the episode as well. But I'm telling you, when you see her in person or, visually, it is just so much more amazing of an experience to have. But I'm telling you, I told y'all this was going to be a good episode. And I think a couple of the facts that we didn't even get to was that 3 in 10 teen American girls will get pregnant at least once before the age of 20. And that's nearly 750,000 teen pregnancies every year. Parenthood, I believe we referenced this very briefly, but parenthood is the leading reason why teen girls drop out of school, and more than 50% of teen mothers never graduate from high school. About 25% of teen moms have a second child within the 24 months of their first baby. Less than 2% of teen moms earn a college degree by age 30. And more than half of all mothers on welfare had their first child as a teenager. In fact, 2/3 of families begun by a young unmarried mother are poor. These are some of the startling statistics that are very real, but I believe that what Roberta shared are things that can help change that trajectory, right? If you are someone that, if someone passes along to you, you're a teen mom, or you are the parent of a teen mom, or you are a former teen mom yourself, and you have kind of at some point subscribed to the idea that you are not able to achieve the dreams that you wanted, that, having a child at an early age has negatively impacted you in some way, and it's kind of held you up in this cycle. I believe some of the things that Roberta shared today will definitely break you out of that cycle, using resources to help you temporarily. She mentioned about, using the system for resources, the welfare system, right? For government assistance. And that is not something to be shameful of, right? We cannot be so prideful that we do not use the resources there that is there to assist us. But for her, the key was to use that resource temporarily. It wasn't ever meant to be a lifetime assistance program, right? But using those resources to help you get on your feet where necessary. Having destiny dialogues. I really love that term, destiny dialogues, because it helps you to really navigate where you want to go in your life. What's gone right thus far? What hasn't? What can I improve on? And really being open and not afraid to have those conversations that quite honestly can temporarily threaten our identity, right? Or the perceptions that we may know them as of today. I think when she stressed the importance of parents opening those dialogues, being open to hear children, unafraid of what they may share. And even sometimes you're gonna be afraid, but do it anyway, right? Having those courageous conversations that we talk about to open those dialogues, to hear how you can improve and just how you continue developing and growing. Those are the things that will help change the narrative. It helps you to not subscribe to the statistics that I just read off. So if you found this episode to be helpful, as we mentioned earlier, Roberta has a private Facebook group called TeenMoms2 Beyond, and that's the number 2. So you can locate her there for additional resources. And she's also on Instagram at RA_Axson. That's AXSON on Instagram. And of course, I will link all of that contact information in the show notes. Separately, again, if you think this episode was beneficial, if it created some impact for you, if you found it to be valuable, please do not hoard the information for yourself. Like, share, subscribe, rate this episode. Share it with someone that you believe may also find it to be beneficial. I also have a private Facebook community where our Peace Pursuits always find out about information first, whether it's additional events, whether it's products, whatever, and we dive into some of these episodes a little more broadly. So would love to have you as a part of our Peace Pursuits community. And separately, if you just want to get in touch with me privately, my link is in the bio. I'm also on Instagram at The Peace Curator, but the best way is to reach out on my bio. There's a number of ways that you can either email me, find me on social media, and even book a free discovery call with me if you realize that, hey, I need some transformation in my profession or my personal relationships overall. That is an option for you. And so I just thank you all so much for joining me here in the Oasis space. You all make what I do so fulfilling. And until next time, I want you to live your best life and embody peace without ever compromising your authentic identity. Love, light, and especially peace. Later, y'all.